Good evening, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. Yes or no? Too much work at office or too many assignments from college? Great. Okay. So just a quick walkthrough. We've completed the speaking, reading, and the listening module. And from now, we will be, from today, we'll start with the writing module. All right. So it's a brand new module, and I want you all to focus completely. And of course, if you have any questions, any doubts, you are always free to ask me in the class itself, drop a message in the chat, or there's always I always open the WhatsApp forum from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. You can ask me queries there as well. Apart from that, every Friday we have a doubt clearing session right after class. If you have any queries this Friday, we can still go ahead and, tackle all of that. Okay, so let's start with today's module, and that's going to be the writing task. What am I going to do today? I'm going to give you an overview of the writing task, talk about the scoring parameters, and there's going to be an introduction to task 1 for both general and academic candidates, and some activity for both general and academic candidates. All right? Yes? Let's start. So your writing module is the third test in the IELTS examination, be it paper-based or computer-based test. The writing task goes on for 1 hour. So you have listening, reading, and then writing. Paper-based candidates also don't get any extra time. Computer-based candidates, obviously 60 minutes. Okay. And this is one of the modules. So I did mention earlier that in the reading module, the kind of texts or passages that you get, academic and general candidates get, are slightly different, but the question types are the same. However, in the writing module, task 1 is different, completely different for academic and general candidates. We will be dealing with both today itself. However, there is a plan, we've segregated it, and we will be teaching both academic and general candidates in this 1 hour itself. So let me just run you through what all types of tasks are there, the word counts, and the duration. Okay. So like I said, task 1 for academic candidates and general candidates are completely different. So all the academic candidates in the group, you will have report writing task. Okay, I will explain it to you in a bit. And general candidates, you have letter writing task as task 1. Okay, task 2 is the same for both academic and general candidates, which is essay writing. Remember, for report writing and letter writing, that is task 1 and task 1 for both academic and general candidates, the word count is 150. And for task 2, it is 250 words, minimum word count. And when I say minimum word count, it means that you have to write those many words. So in task 1, you have to, both academic and general candidates must write 150 words. And in task 2, you must write 250 words. Anything less than 150 or 250 will pull your scores down. Okay. And the duration for task 1 is 20 minutes. The duration for task 2 is 40 minutes, which is that's how you have 1 hour writing module test. Is it clear? Yes. Now, I mentioned earlier, even during speaking, that speaking and writing are productive skills, whereas listening and reading are receptive skills. Now, when I say receptive skills, you have a passage or an audio clip, and you have a set of questions associated or related to these passages and audio clips. You have to pick up the answers from these comprehension passages itself, correct? Listening comprehension or reading comprehension. Whereas speaking and writing, even if everybody here in this group get the same questions, each and every person's answer is going to be different. So how is the examiner going to evaluate each person's language skills or English language capabilities. So they have 4 parameters or 4 criteria that they look at and evaluate or gauge a candidate's English language capabilities and accordingly give you your score. Okay. The first parameter in the writing module is task achievement or task response. In this task, they look at has the candidate written the minimum word count? Okay, so for task 1, has the candidate written at least 150 words? And for task 2, has the candidate written a minimum of 250 words? Anywhere between 150 to 180, 250 to 280 is a good number. But even 1 word less than 150 or 250, the candidate's going to be penalized. Okay. You need to understand the question. Academic or general doesn't matter. You will have to understand the questions, task 1 and task 2, and accordingly provide enough details. And in task achievement, they also check if each and every paragraph that you've written is distinct and segregated properly. Sometimes what happens is when we are writing, we just get carried away and we end up writing a lot of information in probably the introduction itself. Is that how it's supposed to be done? We learned today. So that's task achievement. Coherence and cohesion is your second parameter. Coherence is something you've already heard even in the speaking module, right? That's one of the parameters in speaking module also, which means your answer needs to be in a logical order. In the writing module, you need to ensure that your paragraphs are properly structured and the ideas are relevant to one another that you've written, okay? And cohesion is nothing but connecting paragraphs or sentences using some linking words. What are these linking words, or also known as discourse markers? What are they? Words like however, moreover, firstly, secondly, lastly, in contrast, while, to conclude. These are some words which are also known as cohesive devices or linking words. Okay, so you need to use them wherever required, and you will do that eventually, no doubt about it, but just keep this in mind. Okay, so the first thing they look at is, has the candidate written 150 or 250 words minimum based on the task? Are the paragraphs segregated properly? Is all the information provided as required? Are the answers and paragraphs in a proper order? Are the sentences in a proper order? And is the candidate using some linking words? Then comes lexical resource or vocabulary. Obviously, lexical resource and grammatical range and accuracy are obviously going to be there because this is an English language test, correct? So lexical resources, you know it already. It means using the right words, the correct synonyms, and using these words appropriately. Okay. And grammatical range and accuracy or grammar is you need to make sure that your sentences are structured properly. You must use a variety of sentence structures like simple, complex, and compound. Use the correct prepositions, tenses. Don't jumble all that up. Okay, so if you feel that, I really need to work on this part of grammar, do it. Another thing, I also told you this much earlier, to improve your writing or reading or speaking skills for that matter, it is important to read. So if you like any particular subject, okay, maybe science or technology, entertainment, please read some blogs. If you are somebody who likes reading novels, books, pick up some book and read some articles. Please do that because it will help you with all these 3 modules. Okay. Any doubts, any questions so far? If everything's good, you can just type all good or clear, and then I'll move on. Okay, great. All right. So now, like I said, I'm going to start with task 1. However, task 1 for academic and general candidates are slightly different. Okay, so now I'm going to first talk about task 1 for the academic candidates. So general candidates, don't get confused. Okay, please don't get confused. Let's start with task 1 for the academic candidates. All the academic candidates pay attention. General candidates, just be here online, because immediately I'm going to move on to task 1 for you guys. But just don't get confused. Okay, academic candidates, you have in task 1, you have something called as report writing. What is report writing? You will get a chart or a diagram. Chart as in maybe a pie chart, line graph, bar graph, okay, or a map, a report, a process that you need to understand and summarize. Okay, so you need to write whatever is there in that particular chart or the diagram that you get. In a report, you simply must state facts. We cannot make any conclusions or give our opinions or suggestions at all. Whatever is given to you, you simply summarize it and write it in words. Okay. Now, just like a news report, what does a news reporter do? They don't add any, of course, nowadays it's a different case, but generally they don't give their suggestions. They simply tell you what exactly happened. Okay, or for instance, let's say there's a theft in some place and there are some witnesses. What does the police do? Immediately they come, they investigate that, and the witnesses must say exactly what they saw. They cannot assume, they cannot say, hey, this is why there was a theft. They can't give their suggestions or opinions. They need to say things as it is. That's exactly what you have to do in a report. Okay, you will be given a graph, a pie chart, or whatever, a diagram. You will have to simply state the facts, not give your opinions or conclusions. Clear? All the academic candidates, please type in the chat if you've understood so far. Jeshma, Anirudh, Anila. Okay, Anila, I believe you are also an academic candidate. Okay. All right, so let's see what are the different parts of the report. You have introduction, you have an overview, and you have body paragraphs. I have not written conclusion here because we cannot give any conclusion. Okay. Now, this is how a report looks like. This is how you will get a report. Here you have a line graph and you have a question. Now, what are the different parts of a report question? Let's look at that. The first statement, the line graph shows changes in amount and type of fast food consumed by Australian teenagers from 1975 to 2000, is the description of what of this particular chart. That is what the topic is. Okay, it shows the amount and the changes in the amount and type of fast food consumed by Australian teenagers from 1975 to 2000. What is it that the candidate must do? Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So what is the topic? You have a chart which talks about the changes in the type and the amount of fast food that Australian teenagers have consumed from 1975 to 2000. What is it that you have to do? You have to just write a report by mentioning the main features, and wherever you need to make comparisons, that's where you have to do that. Okay, this is the line graph where you have all the statistics. Correct? This is how you will have a report. You may have a bar graph or a pie chart, but there in the report or in the chart, you have all the statistics, the data, okay, that you need to look at and accordingly write. So far, so good. Jeshma, Anirudh, all the academic candidates. Okay, now. All right. Just a quick run through of the different types of charts or diagrams. You have, like I said, line graph, bar graph, pie chart. You may get a table. You may get a line graph and a bar graph, or you may get two pie charts to make comparison, or a table and a line graph. Okay, either multiple graphs or charts, or a combination of charts and diagrams, map, or a process. However, the method to write reports for any of this is the same, which I want you to understand now. All right. The first thing that you must do in your examination as soon as you get your report writing task is analyze it. Don't quickly jump and start writing, because that's not going to help you one bit. How do you analyze it? First, understand that the chart contains a couple of aspects and look at each one of it properly. Okay, you have a title or the heading. You have something over here in the y-axis which talks about the quantity. How do I know that? Because they've said number of times eaten per year. Okay, so the number of times, the quantity of these fast food consumed in a year has been given in the y-axis, and in the x-axis they've told us the year from 1975 to 2000. Okay, and these elements, they are basically listing or charting it out, chalking it out in this main graph. These are also known as legends or elements. Okay, so we have pizza with blue line, hamburgers green line, and fish and chips red line. Okay, now once you've looked at it, this is not enough. We also need to look at what are some important points, significant points in the chart or the diagram. So these are some significant aspects. If you look at it, fish and chips in 1975 has been consumed the most at 100 times a year. Slight reduction and then again an increase, but after this it has only declined, and in 2000 it is the least popular or the least consumed fast food. Correct? When you look at hamburgers and pizza, very similar trend. They're following a very similar trend. In 1975, not at all popular. However, pizza slowly gained popularity, not very fast, not rapidly. In the year 1990, it crosses the consumption of fish and chips. And from 1995 to 2000, it is consumed at just above 80 times a year. So these points are all very significant that I can use and write in my report. Hamburgers, again, consumed at probably around 5 times a year. Drastic or significant rise. In 1985, crosses the consumption of fish and chips. And in 2000 is the most popular or the most consumed fast food. If you notice carefully, fish and chips in 1975 was consumed at 100 times a year, and in 2000 hamburgers was consumed 100 times a year. The same number of times it was eaten as fish and chips in 1975. Okay, so this is what you need to do as soon as you get your chart or your diagram. Jot down or make a note of all these points before you actually start writing. Jeshma, Anirudh, all the other academic candidates, is it clear so far? Please let me know in the chat. Okay, don't show me thumbs up because I really can't see everybody here at the moment. Okay. Any doubts, any questions? All right. Okay, so once you've done this, once you analyze the chart or the diagram properly, take about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. Once you've done this, you move on and you start writing. Okay, and like I said, your structure is introduction, overview, and body paragraphs. All right. And today we'll just look at 2 elements, not everything. How do you write an introduction? Very simple. First of all, please do not write 100 lines for an introduction itself. 2 sentences are more than enough. What should you write? The first sentence, you should rephrase and restructure the topic. And in the second sentence, you can add data from the y-axis, the x-axis, and these elements. Okay. So what does this chart talk about? It talks about consumption of fast food by Australian teenagers. That's the question given here. In the y-axis, we have the number of times it has been eaten per year. In the x-axis, we have the years from 1975 to 2000. And we have three fast food products that they have mentioned here: pizza, fish and chips, and hamburgers. Now let us look at how to write an introduction. Okay, so like I said, the first sentence needs to be your topic or your topic statement, which is rephrased or restructured. And let's look here. It says the graph illustrates the quantity and the kind of fast food eaten by teenagers in Australia. How did I do that? I simply looked at all the keywords and I changed it or used some synonyms. Instead of writing amount of fast food, I've written quantity. Type of fast food, the kind of fast food. Instead of consumed, I've written eaten. Instead of Australian teenagers, I've written teenagers in Australia. Are you getting my point? You have to rewrite the topic, and your second sentence, use information from the graph. Okay, the three types of fast food, fish and chips, hamburgers, and pizza, were consumed over a period of 25 years from 1975 to 2000 and consumed between 0 to 100 times a year. And that's what it shows in the graph from 1975 to 2000. Three types of fast food consumed between 0 to 120 times a year. Okay, 0 to 120 times a year they've shown on the graph. Clear? So this is how my introduction is going to look like. This graph illustrates, instead of shows, I've written illustrates, the quantity and kind of fast food eaten by teenagers in Australia. Full stop. That's my first sentence. I have rewritten the topic. The second sentence, I've picked up data from the graph itself. I have not written any numbers that fish and chips is the maximum, pizza is the least, nothing. I've simply said there are three types of fast food: fish and chips, pizza, and hamburgers, consumed over a period of 25 years. Obviously, from 1975 to 2000 is 25 years, between 0 to 100 or 120 times a year. Eaten or consumed between 0 to 120 times a year. This is how you write an introduction for any graph, chart, diagram. Okay? Is it clear? Jeshma and Anirudh and the other candidates, please let me know if you have a question. I will address that. Okay, great. Now that it's clear, so I'm also going to give you an activity very soon. So focus, all right? Do not write extra information or unnecessary information in the introduction. This is it. 2 sentences, introduction, and you're done. Next paragraph is something called as overview. Now, overview is basically a summary of whatever is there in the graph, basically an aerial view. Okay. In the overview, you do not write any numbers or statistics or talk about this year this happened. No. All that, reserve it for the body paragraphs. Overview, you simply write one line. Anything that stands out in the graph is what you write, an overall picture. Okay, more like a summary in one line. And what is it that basically stands out in this particular graph? That fish and chips over time has actually declined. And there is a significant or a dramatic rise in consumption of hamburgers. These are the two aspects that stand out the moment I look at the graph. And this is nothing but the summary. Okay. Summary is an aerial view, an overall picture. I have not said in 1975 fish and chips was the highest, or in 2000 hamburgers was highest. No, I've said from so and so year over the 25-year period, fish and chips has reduced or declined in consumption, and Hamburgers has seen a significant rise. That's it. I will not write any numbers. I will not write any years because overview does not need all of that. Okay. So how do I write an overview? Very simple. Overall, you either use terms like overall or at a glance. Okay, either overall or at a glance. It can be seen that over time, not a specific time period, over time, there is a decline in the popularity of fish and chips, while a dramatic increase in the consumption of hamburgers. Are you getting it? No numbers, no years, nothing. And in the introduction, I just write 2 sentences. I paraphrase or restructure and rephrase the first, the question. And the second sentence, I use some overall, or rather some high-level data, high-level information from the chart and frame my statement. Is it clear? An introduction is a separate paragraph. Overview is a separate paragraph. Jeshma and Anirudh, any doubts, any questions? Please let me know. All clear, no doubts at all? If that's the case, Anirudh and Jeshma and the other academic candidates, I'm going to put you in a breakout room while and give you an activity to do. While the others, the general candidates, I'm going to start explaining task 1. Okay. Before I put the academic candidates in the breakout room, let me just quickly send the activity on the WhatsApp group. Okay. Okay, and can you both just open it so I can tell you what you have to do? Let me also share it here. Okay, the academic candidates, just look at the screen. Okay, so in task 1, the first activity, you have to write an introduction and overview for activity 1. This, hold on. Yeah, this is the line graph, and this is the question for the first activity. Write an introduction and overview. I would not want you guys to discuss, do it on your own, because after I finish explaining, task 1 to the general candidates, I will be pulling you back and checking your activity, and general candidates will be given an activity to do. Okay. The same thing you will have to do for this also, Jeshma, Anirudh, and the other academic candidates. You have to analyze the pie charts and write an introduction and overview. This is the question for this. After which, and don't get out of breakout room till I pull you out. Go through this completely. Just go through it. This is a sample report that I've written. Just go through it. Tomorrow we'll discuss this in detail. Is it clear? No, please say graph. It's not a picture. It's a graph. Okay. All right. I'm just going to put all the academic candidates in the breakout room. The others, just please hold on. The others are not here. All right. Now, all the general candidates, are you here? Yes. Please let me know in the chat. Super. Okay. Let's start. Okay. Now, what is so different? Well, you guys will get a letter writing question. Okay. There are three kinds of letters or three types of letters. You will just get one. And you need to understand what each kind of letter is and what are the things you need to know. Okay. So the first kind of letter is a formal letter. Then you have a semi-formal letter and an informal letter. What is a formal letter? When you get a question and in that they ask you to write a letter to some senior at a workplace or to your principal, to a manager, to your CEO, that is a formal letter. At the same time, if you get a question which says, write a letter to a restaurant manager or write a letter to an e-commerce manager, you don't know these people. These are people who you don't know. You just have to write to these people, restaurant manager, an insurance company, an e-commerce website. These are people who you don't know at all. You will write a formal letter in this case. Okay, so when do you write a formal letter? When you're asked to write in the professional sphere, if you are asked to write to somebody senior, like a manager, a CEO, a principal, or when you're asked to write a letter to somebody you don't know. Okay, that time it's always going to be a formal letter. And every letter has a different opening and closing. Okay. For a formal letter, you will always write dear sir / madam or dear sir / ma'am, comma, then you write your letter. And how do you close it? By writing yours faithfully. Now we are going to follow this to the T. Okay. So don't I know you'll wonder, should I always write yours faithfully? Can't I write something else? No, stick to this. For this particular exam, stick to it. These days, we still don't write letters. We end up writing emails or sending text messages, right? But for the exam, we have to write a letter. So let's not discuss, is it okay to write something else as an opening or closing? No, stick to this. Okay, now, an example question for formal letter. You missed an international flight due to a problem at the airport. Write a letter to the airline. Now, whoever you write to, you don't know this person. You may be writing to an airline manager. You don't know this person. So automatically it's a formal letter. And this is exactly how you'll get the question, huh? If letter writing, describe what happened that caused you to miss your flight. Explain how missing your flight impacted you. Clearly state what you would like the airline to do. Here they've told you clearly, write 150 words. You do not need to write any addresses and begin your letter as dear sir or madam. Okay, this is how you will get the letter question. Clear? Have you understood what a formal letter is, guys? Please type a yes in the chat so I will move on. Okay, great. Okay. The next one is a semi-formal letter. When you're asked to write a letter to somebody who you know, but they are not your friends, they're just an acquaintance, you know this person, that's all. That becomes a semi-formal letter. Okay, a landlord or a landlady, the society president or the secretary, okay, or somebody in your local council or your neighbor. All these questions, if you get a question saying write a letter to your neighbor, write a letter to your landlord, automatically you are going to write a semi-formal letter. In India, obviously, generally our neighbors are very close to us. However, for the IELTS exam, we are going to put them under the semi-formal category. Okay. How do you open and close the semi-formal letter? Dear Mr., Miss or Mrs. whatever, and their last name. So dear Mr. Kulkarni or dear Miss Smith. Okay, not the first name, the last name. And you write yours sincerely and your full name. Okay, that's the closing. For formal letter, it was dear sir or madam, and closing was yours faithfully. For semi-formal letter, dear Mr., Miss, or Mrs., with whatever you want to write based on the topic, the last name, and close it by saying yours sincerely. An example question for a semi-formal letter would be, you have been living in a rental apartment for the past year. Recently, a new neighbor has moved in. Who has loud parties several times a week. Write a letter complaining about this to your landlord, explain the situation, describe why it bothers you, and suggest a solution. Over here, if you notice, in the letter itself, they will say, begin the letter as follows, dear Mr. or Miss. So automatically, it's going to be a semi-formal letter. Another hint I'm giving you. When it says, begin with dear sir or madam, hint, formal letter. Okay? Yeah. So here, it's a complaint letter. Okay? I will tell you something just in a bit. Remember this, complaint letter. Okay? Now, the third kind is an informal letter, which obviously is when you're writing to somebody who you know, a family member, a friend, okay? So obviously, how are you going to open the letter? You always address your friends and your cousins on the first, with their first name, right? So it's usually first name basis. Here also opening will be dear first name. And how do you close? Just write regards and your full name, okay? Or just your name, not even full name, because it's an informal letter. Just write regards, Lavanya, okay? An informal letter example, an English-speaking friend wants to spend a 2-week holiday in your region and has written asking for information and advice. Write a letter to your friend, offer to find somewhere to stay, give advice about what to do, give information about what clothes to bring, and begin your letter as follows, dear. So dear, just the first name. Clear? Have you understood the 3 types of letters? Formal, semi-formal, informal. Each of this has a very different opening and closing, different salutations. Is it clear so far? Everybody just type a yes if you've understood. If you have any question, you can ask me. Great. Lovely. So now, yeah, you can even write any Indian name. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. So you can also write semi-formal or informal. Doesn't matter. You can have an Indian name. That's not the main point that they look at. Okay. Yeah. But good question, Aparna. Okay. Now I told you that in the previous one, we looked at a complaint letter. Similarly, you may have a letter where you may be asked to request something, or you may be asked to, express your disappointment about something, okay? Or apologize for not doing something, okay? So whatever kind of letter you get, make sure your tone throughout is very polite. Whether you're expressing disappointment, annoyance, okay, requesting something, okay, or apologizing for something, be polite. Do not use any words or statements which are crass or crude or rude for that matter, because that is not how letters are written, okay? You have to follow a very polite tone throughout, and we will see how to do it eventually, okay, in the next few sessions. Clear? Yes? Okay. Now, after you write dear sir or madam, depending on the essay, dear letter, dear sir or ma'am, or dear Mr. so-and-so, or dear name of your friend, what should you do? You have to obviously start writing. And please, the same thing goes for you guys. Before you start writing, understand whether it's a formal, semi-formal, or an informal letter. Read the question and see what they're asking you to do. Okay. Now, generally, earlier, back in the day, when we used to write letters, we always would write addresses, the recipient's address, our address, a subject line, and stuff like that. In IELTS, do not write that at all. Do not write any address. Do not write any subject, do not write any reference, nothing. You directly start with dear whatever, the letter, the content, and then close your letter. Some people, just to ensure that they reach the 150 word mark, they end up writing all this. That never will be calculated. The examiner will still consider only the content from dear till yours faithfully or regards or whatever. So please don't waste time writing any address, subject or reference, okay? And the structure of your letter is very simple: introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. So the number of body paragraphs depend on the type of letter you have. Ideally 2, but depends on the type of letter you have, okay? There are different ways of opening a letter, okay? This is a list given to you. Just let's quickly take a look at it, okay? I'm writing to bring to your notice, to inform, to notify, to express my dissatisfaction. When you want to write a complaint letter, to express my disappointment, to request something, you can write, I'm writing to request you, or I'm writing with regard to. So based on the kind of letter, you can frame your statement. Subject is for nothing. Subject is not required for any type of letter. Please don't write it. Very, very clear on this. Okay, Anila and the others, do not write any subject line. We don't need it. Now, let us look at how to write an introduction for a formal letter. For all the 3 types of letters, the introduction is pretty much the same with just a few adjustments here and there. I want you to only focus on the adjustment and know how to write an introduction. Even for the general candidates task 1, that's your letter writing, you will not write pages and pages or lines and lines of introduction. It is not going to be more than 2 statements, 2 to 3 statements. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? Because I really don't like putting any number to it. Okay. But it's easier to understand. Okay. So now the question is, you missed an international flight due to a problem at the airport. Write a letter to the airline, and this is what you have to talk about. Now, don't bother about this at the moment while you're writing the introduction. Only focus on the question. When you're writing an introduction, introduction for the formal letter, for a formal letter, you don't know the person you're writing to, so always write who you are in 1 line and write the reason for penning the letter or typing the letter. Okay, write the reason or the purpose of the letter. Okay, that's what your introduction will contain. Purpose of the letter has to be there no matter what, but because you're writing to somebody you don't know, you will have to in 1 line say who you are. For example, I'm Kate Smith, a passenger of Indigo Travels. You can write any name. I've just written here as an example. Okay, so I've written, I'm Kate Smith, a passenger of Indigo Travels. That's it. That's my introduction. Why am I writing this letter? I'm writing to bring to your notice that due to some issue that transpired at the airport, I missed my flight to Bombay on August 1st, 2021. So this is why I'm writing this letter. I'm letting them know that, hey, there was an issue at the airport. Not my fault, but an issue at the airport. And that's why I missed my flight on so-and-so day. Are you getting my point? This is the purpose of writing the letter to the airline company. Is it clear? Have you guys understood? Yes, great. Now, how do you write an introduction for a semi-formal letter? Any questions? Okay. Now, semi-formal letter, again, let's not look at the 3 bullet points. Let's just look at the question. And it says, you've been living in a rental apartment for the past year. Recently, a new neighbor moved in who has loud parties several times a week. Write a letter complaining about this to your landlord. So this is a complaint letter. Okay. So based on the recipient and based on the topic, right? You can decide whether you want to say who you are and then write the purpose of the letter. Okay. In this case, you are writing a complaint letter to your landlord. Imagine if the situation was completely different and the question said that recently a neighbor complained to your landlord about loud noises and parties happening at your apartment. So that person, the neighbor and the landlord, now know who exactly it is who's having loud parties. In that case, you don't have to write I am so and so. Are you getting the difference, guys? Yes or no? In this case, you are writing a letter, you are starting the letter, and that is exactly why you write who you are in the semi-formal letter. If it was about you, already some letter has gone, you're just replying to that letter. So in that case, you don't need to write I'm so and so. Okay. So, but remember, again, common thing is purpose. Always write the purpose in the introduction, not anywhere else. It says, I'm Kate Smith, your tenant in apartment 303. I'm writing to notify you of the unpleasant situation I have been facing lately. So I haven't written, hey, my neighbor is making loud noise, he's having several parties, and it's very annoying in the introduction itself. What am I doing? I'm just letting this landlord know that, you know what, I've been facing a very troublesome situation. That's all. I have not explained what the troublesome situation is, because in the introduction, don't explain anything. Just simply say, why are you writing the letter? So every time you write an introduction, ask yourself, why? Why am I writing this letter? Think of that in one statement, one line, and write that. No explanation at all in introduction. Is it clear? Yes, no, maybe, all good so far? Okay. Let's look at how to write an introduction for an informal letter. Because it's an informal letter, obviously it's going to be casual. The tone itself is going to be casual. You're not going to write business-like letters to your friend or to your cousin or to your parents, right? It's going to be much more easy, much more simple, correct? So here it says, write, an English-speaking friend wants to spend a 2-week holiday in your region and has written asking for information and advice. Write a letter to your friend, whatever it is. So I don't need to bother about the bullet points at the moment. I just need to look at this. Okay. How am I going to write an informal letter? Always greet. One sentence where you're asking how the person is doing, and probably you received a letter from the person and you're very excited about something, and follow up from the situation given in the question. How do you do it? Very simple. Dear Anisha, name of your friend, hope you're doing well. If you notice, I did not mention this line in formal or semi-formal letter, which means please don't write how are you doing or hope you're well in a formal or semi-formal letter. That's clear for you also. All right, so academic candidates, task 1, you have a report writing. Always analyze the graph or the chart or the diagram, whatever you get, properly. Look at the key features given in that particular chart or diagram. When you write the introduction, remember, just rephrase or restructure the topic and pick up the high level information, like what is there in the x-axis, what is there in the y-axis, not the main features, and write in your introduction. What is an overview? It is just a summary, an overall picture, not just one specific time, but an overall picture. That has to be just one sentence again. All right. There are 2 different paragraphs. Okay. General candidates, there are 3 kinds of letters. One is formal, then semi-formal, informal. Formal letter is when you're writing to somebody who you don't know. Semi-formal, an acquaintance. You know this person, not best of friends. And third, does not mean your enemy or anything, but you just know this person. And then informal is when you're writing to your family or very close friends. Okay. For every introduction, you must write the purpose in one line. However, depending on whether it's a formal, semi-formal or informal, you will change the first statement. So for a formal letter, you will introduce yourself and write the purpose. For a semi-formal, introduction is optional, like who you are is optional depending on the question, and you always have to write a purpose. And informal, greet and write the purpose of the letter. All right. In your letter, please do not write any address, subject or references for any of the letters. Okay. 1 second, just want to ask, informal, in activity, we know about our manager, so do we have to write? No, if it's a manager, see, in emails, right, Rana and others, nowadays we write the first name of our manager or our senior, or even the CEO for that matter. That's how it has become. But this is not an email. What is this? This is a letter. So you will write dear sir or madam only. Please don't bring email etiquette or email methods here. Okay, it's still a letter. All right, Rana, did I answer your question? Great. All right, so now with this, I'm going to close today's session. All right, tomorrow, 1 second, do we have a list for first sentence? Example, would like to. Sorry, I did not understand that, Aparna. Can you please unmute? Yeah, Aparna, please unmute and ask me your question.
Yeah, so is there like in the example that you were showing, I would like to write on behalf of, I am disappointed. So is there a list? Because I was confused which one to use. Maybe if there's a list and
there
then
is in Canvas, you can check it out in Canvas.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Everything is there on Canvas, and obviously the 5 test papers in skillmarathon.tcy. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, you can mute yourself. All right, guys. So tomorrow also, obviously, I'm going to be dividing the session into 2 parts. All right. That's only for task 1. And I'll make sure that you also have enough practice so that there's no confusion in writing task. All right, in the writing module. I just need you guys for anything to be very, to give your 100% also. Okay. All right. So with having said that, thank you very much. Please send your activities on the group in the WhatsApp forum, preferably on the WhatsApp forum, not individually, because then for me, it becomes easier to correct and give you feedback. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow at 5:30. Thank you very much and have a great evening. Bye.